I trust in the body's ability to say so much. You know, I trust in how we communicate with each other without words. I really trust in that. Just the hands not wanting to let go, you know, and how that rhymes with them kissing in the trees. For me, that says a lot. I see the importance of eyes, but for me, hands are right up there. And I also in a film that deals a lot with generations. I was excited by what can be communicated when you see different generations of hands, the wrinkles, you know, the lines, the life present, all of that really excites me. There's certainly not one way, correct way to do it, and I think that's why I think it's so important to know who you are. Like, what is important to you? Why are you working in this medium? Why this film? Like, I think knowing, again, what your non-negotiables are, what is bringing you to the table. If you know who you are, what the film is, and why you're doing it, again, it's like a guiding light. It makes it clear. It starts to make it clear, oh, should I take a left here or take a right? And I think trusting yourself is big too. Mm-hmm.
Hi, how are you doing? Welcome to Cinemaldia podcast, the audio inventory of some of the events taking place at the San Sebastián Film Festival. One of the masterclasses of the festival's 71st edition Nest section was given by Raven Jackson at the Tabakalera cinema. The American filmmaker presented Older Road's Taste of Salt in the official selection, a debut feature that premiered at the Sundance Film Festival and was developed within Ikusmira Berriak. Ikusmira Berriak is a program of residencies and project development, jointly organized by the San Sebastián Film Festival, Tabakalera International Center for Contemporary Culture, and Elias Kerejeta Cine Escola. The masterclass was moderated by Mayalen Beloki, Deputy Director of the San Sebastián Film Festival.
La película que acabáis de ver es su ópera prima, la ópera prima de Raven, a la que conocemos bien en el Festival de San Sebastián, también en Tabakalera, porque en el 2018 participó precisamente en la sección Nest, en esta sección en la que participáis muchas de vosotras también, con su cortometraje Nettles. Y al año siguiente, en el 2019, participó en la residencia para cineastas Ikusmira Berriak, con el proyecto de la película que acabáis de ver. Raven te acompaña también en la película María Altamirano, con la que viniste también a la sección Nest, con lo que es una colaboración también larga. Y en algún momento del viaje se sumó la importantísima compañía de producción A24 a la producción de la película. Quería preguntarte, como una primera pregunta, cómo surge la idea de la película y cómo conseguiste ir acompañándote de estas compañeras de viaje para poder al final llevarla a cabo y ver que se haya convertido en la película que hemos visto ahora.
Yes, thank you for that question, and it's great to be here. Thank you, everyone who's here. It feels special to be back. So Maria Altamirano and I met in film school at NYU, New York University, and we didn't collaborate until, Maria's here. We didn't collaborate until the latter years of the program, but I was drawn to collaborate with her because she was known in the program as deeply investing in the work that she took on and I wasn't looking for someone who was just going to do paperwork. Like, I really wanted a creative partner, and I knew that's what Maria would be, and she became so much more than that. She's one of my greatest friends also. And so as I was building the project, I knew Maria being there was already a big piece. And then Jomo Frey, who was the cinematographer of the film, he also was the cinematographer of Nettles, which was played in Nest. And so I knew that with the feature-length project, I wanted to continue those collaborations, which was really important, I think, when it did come time to get a production company on board, to also speak to the fact that the collaborators I'm working with, I have a trust with and like a demonstrated ability to work with and to produce, work with. I think that really helps to build trust with the people you're talking to when you're speaking about your project, And it was an amalgamation of things to bring me to building the script for Dirt Roads. It didn't start on the page. It started with a pitch deck, with me taking photographs in the South of the States, of members of my family, of landscapes, of writing language that I felt evoked the feeling I was going for with the film, of doing a mood reel, of taking Super 8 footage of my parents, and because I knew I was going to shoot on film, so to be able to speak to that in some way. So it was really, before I even approached a script, I needed to be deep in the world. And then eventually there was a fishing trip where I took some photographs of my parents, and it just felt like, okay, it's time. There were actually it was some of the photos I used for Ikusmira. That was the fishing trip. And I started to write scenes that I didn't necessarily know how they would live together yet, but I knew they would, or it was something I needed to write to get to what would ultimately be in the final script. And it was a long-ish process of writing, of taking away. But eventually the script was in a place where, or the project more so, because I didn't have a full script, but the project was in a place where I applied to the Indie Memphis Black Filmmaker Residency that's in Tennessee. And Barry Jenkins was a judge for that. And he ended up selecting the project for the residency. And we, didn't really speak much beyond that. But when the script was ready to be brought to production companies, like a few months later, I knew Barry and his company Pastel with Adela Romansky, who's here, and Mark Sariak. I knew they could potentially be great partners for this, and Maria and I knew we wanted to speak with them. And when we did, the rest was history, and it was a very organic process, but also I think in the pitching stages of this, like Maria and I pitched it so many times, Ikusmira being one of those places where we built the language. I think one thing that was key for us was knowing what the film is and being unapologetic about that. You know what I mean? That if it isn't for someone, okay, it's not for you. Maybe it's another project, it's not this one. Not being willing to make the project something else just to get support. If it's not for you, it's not for you. And really knowing what the project is and what your non-negotiables are.
De hecho, estas semanas previas, preparando un poco esta conversación, intenté rescatar los dosieres que presentaste para Ikusmira Berriak y encontré dos versiones del proyecto y la verdad es que me sorprendió mucho ver cómo el proyecto ya en el 2018 estaba, y después de ver la película esa sensación me quedó de, bueno, creo que Raven ha hecho la película que quería hacer desde el 2018, ¿no? Que lo ha conseguido. No sé qué sensación tienes tú de haber podido llevar a cabo esa idea que tenías, o en la fase de producción también, si ha podido ir evolucionando o cambiando el proyecto hasta convertirse en otra película. These days, preparing this conversation, I just asked for the 2 dossiers that you presented for Ikusmira Berriak, and I got them. And I was very surprised to see that the project that was there, the idea, is actually the film that you made.
Yeah,
so I was really nicely surprised, and I was asking you if you feel like you could make the movie that you wanted from the very beginning, or something changed in the process.
No, it's the film, and I'm so grateful to be able to say that. I think that's the biggest thing I'm grateful for, is to be able to watch this film, and I've watched it so many times, to be able to watch it and every time say, this is the film that I aim to make, like the feeling, the language I'm using in the pitch deck, what I was searching for when I was building materials, like when I watched the film, it's there. And it wasn't, I think when I was building it, maybe I felt it would be a more linear process than it was to get to it, but and not linear in the film, but just like straightforward with maybe to get to the final film. And I didn't know the routes it would take. Of course you can't know that, but it's 100% the film I aim to make, and I'm really grateful to be able to say that. Mm-hmm.
Quería un poco preguntarte por el proceso de escritura de la película, porque una cosa que llama la atención es de alguna forma su estructura o su guión, no, digamos, una narración no lineal de la vida de Mac. Y quería preguntarte por si eso estaba ya desde la escritura del guión y también cómo trabajaste eso en la tercera escritura de una película, que es el montaje, ¿no? Ya si la primera es la escritura del guión, la segunda el rodaje y la tercera el montaje. ¿Cómo fuiste articulando esa historia, esos episodios de la vida de Mac? Porque de alguna manera sí queda la sensación que también es una película sobre la memoria, cuando alguien repasa, digamos, que su vida, ¿no? Que supongo que los episodios que se le vienen a la cabeza no guardan tampoco una estructura lineal.
Yes, you know, when I was writing the script, I was guided by an emotional through line, like building. I would describe it as it's an emotional journey rather than a traditional plot A, plot B, plot point B, plot point C. I'm emotionally placing each. I would call them portrait, each scene with Mac at different ages. I'm intentionally placing each portrait where it is in the film to build an emotional journey throughout. And I see for the time in the film, I approached it as like all of it is now. Like when I was writing it, I didn't say this age 7 is past or age 55 is future. I really was like each moment, also through the shooting, through the editing, like is now, you know, to not give that feeling of I wanted it to be fluid rather than like there's an anchor that's now and everything else is future or past, you know? Even though when I sit with the film now, it's interesting because I do that scene with her when she's older, always feels like, even with that one always feels like if there is a now, it's that one for me. But in the edit, I knew this film is very modular, and so I knew going into the edit, like we have the script, but the finished film likely isn't asking to be in the same order as the script. And when I saw, you know, the first cut, I was like, yep, that was right. And it was a matter of just stringing some of the scenes together of different ages and seeing, okay, ooh, how does this feel? Who actually wants to be there? It was really a discovery. The editor is Lee Chatham-Medical, who's amazing, and he's based in Thailand. And so it was all virtual, his mornings, my nights, and we would go for 6 hours or so. And, you know, at the beginning, really, me with index cards on the walls and us talking about through things and seeing, ooh, what wants to live here, and sometimes starting more in the middle of the film and then going back to the beginning and then watching it. Or it was really a fluid process as well. And also always going back to emotionally, how is this tracking? And so it was interesting. Like in the same way, the script asked to be okay, writing something, taking away, trying something, taking away. The edit asked for that too. But once we cracked certain sequences, it really started to reveal itself where things wanted to go. And also the repeat of certain things as far as going back to the death multiple times, like when we start to screen it, and I think maybe it was a Dalen's note about like potentially going back, and we tried that. I was like, ooh, this works really well. And so things like really seeing, because there's a lot of slant rhymes in the film, and I would say in the shooting of the film with Jomo Frey, the cinematographer, we would say slant rhymes on how we're shooting things, and then there's slant with Lee, we would talk about slant rhymes in the edit, and so sometimes like, ooh, this needs another rhyme here, or it was really, but yeah, it was a modular process, which could be scary in some ways, but because I already was rooted in that with the script, it was exciting, because I knew all the pieces were there. It was just building that emotional arc, and also taking away things. We shot more than is in the film, in the same way I wrote more than is in the final script.
I just wanted to have a stop in the scene where the Mac and she hugs the like the long hug, because it's something that stays in the mind of the viewer. at least in my mind. And I was thinking about the bodies in the film, and specifically the hands, because it's like very important. You see a lot of close-ups to the hands, how they touch each other, the characters. So I would like to ask you a little bit about this importance of the body and the bodies in the film, and specifically about this scene of the long hug between Mac.
Yeah, that's that feels like that scene is like one of the hearts of the film for me. And it's really, I scripted that scene. I knew writing, I'm a very spare writer, so I knew scenes were going to want to live longer than what's on the script. But that scene is not like I went into it knowing this is going to be a 10-minute scene. It was really being present and seeing what was happening in front of me, and knowing that with these characters that wouldn't be a 15-second hug, you know what I mean? And telling, Reginald Helms Jr., who's an older Wood in the film, like just a little longer, that note just a little longer, you know what I mean? And I trust in the body's ability to say so much. I trust in how we communicate with each other without words. I really trust in that. And I have a deep interest in the body. I have a short film, Nettles, which played at Nest and explores stinging moments in the lives of different girls and women. And each chapter is named after a body part. And so I've always, my photography, like I'm drawn to the body, I'm drawn to hands. And I feel, this film does a lot with connection, and so how that scene is shot speaks a lot to that. And again, for me, the hands not wanting to let go, and how that rhymes with them kissing in the trees. For me, that says a lot, For some, I see the importance of eyes, but for me, hands are right up there. And I also in a film that deals a lot with generations. I was excited by what can be communicated when you see different generations of hands, the wrinkles, the lines, the life present, all of that really excites me. Yeah.
Hay otras rimas en la película que tienen que ver también con la naturaleza y con los sonidos de la naturaleza. El agua, por ejemplo, el agua cuando llueve, el agua de la bañera, la tormenta, el agua del lago, etc. Y quería preguntarte un poco por el trabajo del diseño de sonido, que creo que es muy determinante en esta película, en la creación de una atmósfera también, un poco emotiva, un poco nostálgica, ¿no?
Yes, in a film that doesn't have a lot of score, a lot of dialogue, I recognized that the sound design was key. And also, I used to record sound. It's very important to just my work. I am very drawn to having very detailed and hopefully experiential sound, And so I worked with Miguel Mikey Calvo, who's actually based in Spain. And we were very intentional with the levels of things, when it's very quiet, when I really see the sound design in this film as the score at most points, and being intentional when I am bringing in actual score or any music. And I wanted the sound to add another layer to being able to access the interiority of these characters, and also to speak to another layer, speaking to place, to in nature, and to, of course, the sound of the water, the sound of rain and thunder is very important. And when thinking about, cycles are very important in this film, when thinking of the moments you hear, like being intentional with the moments you hear rain or thunder, and what is the texture of that rain. Like Lee and I, and Mikey and I, Lee and I before we got into the mix stage, we were already like so detailed with the sound. That's one of the reasons I was drawn to Lee, because he's very particular about sound. And I knew I didn't want to wait until the mix to be particular about sound. With a film like this, like you can't show it with just really rough sound. It just doesn't, it wouldn't translate well, you know? And so being intentional with when you hear the rain, what is the texture of that rain? What is it when you hear thunder, when Mac is in the bathtub, and you also hear thunder towards the end of the film when she's on the porch with Lily, you know? And yeah, using the sound design to again speak to those slant rhymes that I'm going for, to the cycles, to the changes that this character goes through, that we all go through in life, that's mirrored in nature. I was really looking at it through that lens. And again, knowing that with a film that has so little dialogue, the sound design, I wanted it to be at a very high level.
You said that apart from Maria Altamirano, who is with you since the very beginning with Nettles, also the cinematographer is from your team. And as a viewer, it's really shocking, like the photography of the cinematography of the film. It really helps also to, you know, construct the atmosphere and the environment of the film. And I wanted to ask you a little bit more about that issue, how you work with him, and understanding also that if you've been working with him like for so many years, it's because he understands also like the type of aesthetics that you want to do with the film.
Yeah, I think it's a real gift to have worked with Jomo again on this, and because we really deepened our collaboration. And you know, before we even got to thinking of how we wanted the film to look, we spoke about what we wanted to feel like, you know, and we wrote down things that spoke to that. We really went through scenes with that in mind, and then okay, what tools, what lenses can aid us in getting to that? And I think what's really what I really value with working with Jomo is that we make plans, we shot lists, but when we're on set, we're not rigid. You know, we're present to what's happening. Like if we plan to use a certain lens or to block it or I plan to block it a certain way, and when I'm on set with the actors and it's not working, it's like, okay, you know what I mean? We're not precious with what we planned ahead of time, and we're very loose on our feet with that. And I think always having, okay, but what are we emotionally going for, guiding the way, it kind of cuts out the noise, you know, because even for me, I know what I'm looking for, but I'm open to the way I find it. And I feel Jomo really operates really well in that way. And there, like for instance, the dancing scene, the night before we shot that scene, we were like, okay, what lens have we not used yet? You know, like infusing a sense of play into that, and that's one of my favorite scenes in the film. And we shot that scene with a super long lens, you know, one you wouldn't naturally choose to shoot that scene with usually. And it's just, for some of the longer takes, like I would tell Jomo, with some of the longer takes, like there's a longer take in that scene, I want to be in this area, but I want you to follow what inspires you, and if I want to see something specific, I'll guide you, I'll tell you. You know, I'm always really close to Jomo when shooting. And so allowing a sense of flow into it too, in some of the longer takes, I think giving room to that, like making plans, but being present and giving room for what's happening on the day. That, for me, there's been a lot of magic to get in that way.
So the film portrays the life of Mackenzie, who is a black woman that lives in the 60s in the Mississippi. And it takes like different moments of her lifetime. Like sometimes they are like a small moment, like more family moments, and sometimes like really big issues like the first love, or, you know, also like the motherhood, sisterhood, and different ways of understanding the family. I feel like the motherhood is a big issue in the film. I don't know if it was something that you pretended to do like that, because it's, you know, a way of understanding maybe more open-minded that we are used to watching in some films. And I wanted to ask you a little bit about these topics that you are, you know, selecting in the lifetime of Mackenzie, because it gives you like an understanding of, you know, a way of living in a place of a character.
Yeah, I didn't approach a script like knowing, oh, I'm talking about this or talking about that. Like it was about finding, and the Max storyline, I feel, with Josie raising her biological daughter. I mean, when we're speaking to slant rhymes, like for me, that speaks also to the change I'm going for in the film, the community, the connection, the love that is at the heart of this film, and how things change form, how family can change form. For me, that storyline speaks to it. And it was, yeah, I'm not sure I'm answering.
Yes.
It was, but that was, yeah, and so when I don't remember exactly where I was in the writing process when I found it, but when I found it, I was like, oof, this is it. And it was like an exclamation point on it when I wrote the scene with Mac and Lily on the porch, speaking about how rain changes form for me. That scene, again, just really speaks to like, which is mirrored in the hands you see that are changing form, changing generations, changing characters. It was another, that line was another, that storyline was another slant rhyme for me. Mm-hmm.
I would like to ask you a little bit about your film references. A lot of critics are seeing Terrence Malick. I don't know if you're seeing it too, but I would like to ask you which are the films that you really like and you feel inspired, and if they have any connection to your own film or not.
There's no connection to Malick. Yes, Malick is a reference. Jomo and there are definitely similarities, like in the visuals of that film and of his work with this film. And Jomo and I watched Tree of Life before shooting it. We watched Silent Light. We watched Mirror. And it was a lot of, I was interested in, for me, it's filmmakers who are able to find the profound in the mundane, and who are interested in, I'm deeply interested in nature, interested in taking in patience and allowing things to unfold. Lore by Kate Shortland was another thing that really spoke to the evocative, tactile sensibility I was looking for. And so filmmakers who have that intersection of nature, and with Daughters of the Dust, it was Julie Dash's Daughter of the Dust, it was nature, but also a lot of history of the characters, and that's a very tactile film. And it was also poetry, like Lucille Clifton was someone I turned to a lot, and so it was starting points for us to land on our own feet with this film. Mm-hmm.
Vamos a ir abriendo el turno de preguntas. Yo tengo más preguntas para ella y curiosidad, pero no me gustaría dejaros sin la oportunidad de preguntar.
Hi, thank you for your film. I really enjoyed it. I was wondering about the process of working with actors, because as you mentioned, this film has a few dialogue, and what you sense in the physical acting is really potent. So I was wondering how you transmitted that emotions, the story behind the expressions they were feeling. How did the process work between you and them? Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that question. It was, I worked with a mix of first-time actors and more established actors, and I would always make a point to have conversations with the actors one-on-one to talk about, before we get into specific scenes, like just who they believe this person is, and get more in under the skin. And I also, but even backing it up, in casting, I already, with everyone cast, there was already something that was like, oof, this is the person, you know? With Sheila, she knew about clay dirt. She's familiar with that practice. Her family's familiar with that practice. Grandma Betty in the film is familiar with the eating of clay dirt. It was very important for me that whoever I cast in the grandma role actually ate clay dirt, which and knew of it. She doesn't eat it anymore, but she did, you know, and because I wasn't interested in sensationalizing that thread, I wanted to be very authentic and true to details. And then every other character I could, like, every other character, there was something was like, ooh, this is you, and I trust it when I feel that. And then on set, I'm very big on as little people around as possible. I don't like a lot of noise, not only for the actors, but for me. Like, I mean, we're asking to go to vulnerable places, and just to allow as much space for that as possible is important to me. So that was key. And then there would be a lot of times, you know, I would just pull the actors separately, and maybe I'm asking a question to see what gets there, or I'm just saying, like, for instance, when I said earlier, I was saying to Reggie, just a little bit longer, or like, you know, she smells the same. You know what I mean? Like something to get in the senses, you know what I mean? Get in the body. That's big for me. So yeah.
Hi, okay, thank you again for your film. And about the casting and the actors and the performances, you mentioned there's not like one main age, but it's all like present. So I was wondering, in terms of the performances, while guiding them, the different generations of the same character, did the actors get to interact with each other, or it was more like creating the unique yet interconnected? I was wondering about how you achieved that, because it's so beautiful portrayed, and I feel like it was easy to know which one is which. There was like an essence or a feel. So I was wondering, how was that process?
Thank you. Thank you for that question. Yeah, you know, there were a couple moments where a couple different Macs met, but I tried not to have them meet. But on a smaller set, sometimes it's unavoidable when they're both there. But in casting, Charlene, who plays late teens to early 30s Mac, she's actually a friend in my life. She's a poet. And there was one day we're in the park, and I had the question arose, like, oh, I saw the potential. And Charlene has a face that carries many years, and I knew I needed that for this role because she plays late teens to early 30s. Someone who, you know, we've all watched those films where you're watching someone who's supposed to be a teenager, and you're like, I know this person is in their 30s. You know what I mean? And I didn't want that feeling. And so it was important for me to find someone who could believably carry those years. And I knew she had that face, and so we explored, and then it was eventually her, and she was the first, okay, we have her. And then it was looking for younger Mac while also looking for older Mac, and I found Kaylee Nicole Johnson, who plays younger Mac. It's the eyes, and I would print out photographs of Charlene and Kaylee, and it's just wild. Like, there's one photo of them in pre-production where they both have the braids in the hair, and I put the photographs side by side, and it's just, they both have masks on because we were shooting during COVID, and so we were all masked up, and it's just, the eyes just really, they really speak to each other, and so it was the eyes in that way, and also a sensibility. They both have, their eyes have an interiority quality to, like, you know, there's more going on. And because, again, it's a film that doesn't have a lot of dialogue, I need someone who can say something without saying anything. Like, their face just, their eyes do that. And so that's when I'm auditioning people, I'm looking for that. I'm doing exercises that are asking for that and seeing, you know, what comes back. And so once I met Kaylee, I knew it was her. And then with older Mac, who is Zainab Jah, I had seen her work, I knew she's great, and also when I met her, I knew it was her. She just has a physical similarity to Charlene, like they really favor each other. Some people think it's actually Charlene with like, you thought that, you see? And it's like, I could see they really favor each other. And again, she has this, I want to say quiet, I'm not sure that's the word I'm looking for, but it's just there's more going on, like there's something going on in her body, you know what I mean, without her saying anything. There's something going on under the surface with her, and so, yeah. And then with the baby Mac or toddler Mac, it was just someone who favored them in some way.
I just want to ask you one last question. You were here like some years ago with your short film, and now there are a lot of students here presenting their graduation film, and I'm sure that they are developing a feature film, a lot of them. I know that there's not one way of doing the things, but I don't know if you could tell them something, because you actually went into different residencies, as you were telling here. Maybe it's a nice way for them to continue developing the project, and because launching and getting the support to make a feature film, it's not easy anywhere. So I don't know if you can tell them something, like a tip or something. I know there's not just one correct way of doing it, but...
Yeah, there's certainly not one correct way to do it, and I think that's why I think it's so important to know who you are. Like, what is important to you? Why are you working in this medium? Why this film? Like, I think knowing, again, what your non-negotiables are, what is bringing you to the table, both for yourself just as a filmmaker, but also for a specific project, I think makes it so that you have a guiding light when you are building a project. Because I think when you're rooted in the film and you're rooted in why you're doing it, what it is, what you will and will not compromise on, it makes it so clear when something's a no and when something's a yes, And I think seeking out opportunities like Ikusmira, if it resonates, or other residencies. Maria and I did so many residencies before we got to a stage of getting financing or getting, the Amazing Pastel on board. Like, we did so many residencies to build this, and of course, that's not going to be the route for everybody, but see if it's for you, and potentially look in the bio of other filmmakers and who you feel you resonate with, and what residencies did they do. But for me, the biggest thing is knowing who you are, as a filmmaker, because I think that informs everything. Knowing that I work best, and also knowing how you work best, but that's for production, But if you know who you are, what the film is, and why you're doing it, again, it's like a guiding light. It makes it clear. It starts to make it clear, oh, should I take a left here or take a right? And I think trusting yourself is big too. Mm-hmm.
I know you have a lot of festivals now, but just as curiosity, are you working in something new already, or still not? Do you have any new project? Something that you can talk to us about here?
Yeah, I won't go deep into it. I mean, with the strike, things are on pause, but I know what I'm doing next, and which is exciting. And yeah, it's exciting to know what is next while also still being at early stages with Dirt Roads, But I'm excited to be watching Dirt Roads continue to come into bloom while starting to plant seeds and write things with another one when the strike is over.
We will be looking forward to seeing your next movie for sure. Os voy a pedir un fuerte aplauso para Raven.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And so ends this new episode of Cinemaldia podcast. a space included in the activities of the thought and discussion area. You can listen to more film talks and master classes on our website or on your favorite audio platform. See you next time!